Hi, everybody, and Happy New Year. Yes, welcome to 2026, and welcome to this edition of the Boon of Wireless Podcast, now part of Wirelo. Yes, Wirelo, revolutionizing the way businesses in the wireless industry connect, collaborate, and thrive. As a premier B2B marketplace, Wireless platform is designed to cater specifically to the needs of the wireless store vendors in America. Contact them at wirelo.com. I am your host, Jon Horovitz, coming to you as always high above the streets of northern New Jersey at ANJ Media. Yes, New Jersey. Okay, so we're going to start off 2026 without making fun of our wonderful state. We've had all kinds of laughs over the last 2 years of the podcast at New Jersey's expense, but in reality, New Jersey is not that bad. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's crowded, and still trying to end its stigma of, well, being New Jersey. But where else can you get everything that New Jersey has? Mountains, beaches, great food, restaurants, top-notch education, and access to major cities like New York and Philadelphia, not to mention our diversity and all the other great things, like a hotel in Ventnor that's built like an elephant. Okay, this is not my apology for 2 years of ridiculing New Jersey, but my profound appreciation for everything that New Jersey has to offer. So that being said, come visit and enjoy a slice of our famous tomato pies, or visit a Wawa or Quick Check and see what we have going here. Okay, my guest today is a serial telecom entrepreneur and technology executive with a proven record of building and exiting high-impact ventures in digital connectivity. Over the past 2 decades, Emir Aboulhosn has founded and led companies that have transformed how operators and device manufacturers deliver mobile, eSIM, and entitlement technologies. He began his career by founding Synergive Technologies, an early peer-to-peer enterprise file sharing platform whose core IP and technology were acquired by Microsoft in 2004, marking his first successful exit. In 2011, Emir launched Roam Mobility, introducing a disruptive roaming replacement service that reshaped the Canadian telecom industry by eliminating roaming fees for cross-border travelers. The company achieved national retail distribution and was acquired by Tuckos Inc. in 2017. In 2021, Emir founded NetLync Mobile Communication Technologies Limited, creator of the world's first Entitlements as a Service platform. Under his leadership, NetLync is recognized by Apple as a core technology partner in entitlements globally and collaborates closely with mobile operators and major OEMs. Emir's ventures consistently reflect innovation, operational excellence, and measurable value creation across the global telecom ecosystem. So, with all that, please join me in welcoming to the broadcast Emir Aboulhosn. Emir, it is great to see you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, John. And thanks, Seth, for that great introduction, too.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well deserved. So you're coming to us from Vancouver, but are you in Vancouver, Canada, or Vancouver in the state of Washington?
I'm in Vancouver, Canada, where we don't have snow, actually. We just get a lot of rain. But so just a misconception, everyone, when they think I'm from Canada.
Let's talk a little bit about NetLync, the company that you founded. Give us an overview of what NetLync does.
NetLync builds entitlement services. So it's one of those underlying technologies that plays a really critical role in how you use your iPhone or your Android device. And I can tell you right now that if somebody asks my wife or my kids, what is your husband, what does your dad do? They have no idea, because it's a bit complex to the normal person. Yeah. Entitlements is something that was created about over a decade ago, about 12 years ago, by Apple, and its primary role was actually to authenticate your device, just to make sure that when you're using iMessage or FaceTime, that you've got an authenticated, encrypted connection between your whoever you're communicating with at the time. So if you've ever seen a time when you get off a plane or you're restarting your phone and you send a text message and it starts off green, then it switches to blue. Well, when it's green, it's still running over SMS. Once it goes into blue, it's been authenticated, and then it switches over to iMessage overall. Same practice applies for Android devices with Google Messaging as well too. But once it authenticates, then it actually opens up a whole bunch of new features for you. So what it does now is it checks with the carrier and it says, hey, what's John's device capable of doing? Can it do a voice over Wi-Fi? Can it do an eSIM transfer? Can it add an Apple Watch? And it checks in, authenticates, checks in, verifies, and then basically allocates that feature or that function over to the device. So it does a bit of quality control in the background, and then ultimately gives you just a better consumer experience on the devices as well too, because it opens up all these new features.
In layman's terms, what are entitlements? Explain how you look at entitlements, different how someone may say that this is my entitlement that I get from, paying into Social Security for 50 years. That is my entitlement.
I've always said I would love for them to rename the technology, but I think it's a little bit too late now. That being said, it is descriptive, right? It does entitle your device to do certain things, right? So number one is when you before you get entitled, you've got to be authenticated. We got to know it's you, right? So the way it does that is it checks in with the carrier. It does a phone number challenge, right? It says, okay, prove to me that's John. Right. And there's a really great way of doing that. And then once you have been authenticated, now you're entitled to actually access the features that have been set up between the carrier and Apple. I always like to think of it as visualize a triangle. That's always the easiest way for me to describe what we do. It's a triangle, and we sit right in the middle of that triangle. And on the points of that triangle, you've got the carrier, you've got the user and the device, and then you've got Apple or Google. And so its job is to sit in between all three parties and make sure that they're all in sync with each other. And then it decides, what is that device entitled to? Can you download an eSIM? Can you transfer an eSIM? Are you entitled to add an Apple Watch? And so it goes through, and there's about 15 or 16 use cases with, for example, with Android, can you do satellite, right? So the list kind of goes on and on. It's growing and growing more and more. But I mean, it is entitling you to access features from the OEM on the carrier's network.
One of the key features is that it's making sure on the front end that I am who I say I am.
Yes, yeah, and that's really kind of the one of the most critical features. In fact, that component now is what's being used to make sure that you can communicate between iMessage and Google Message. So as we know that there's what we call cross RCS that's been happening now. So iMessage users and Google Message users can now send secure messaging, encrypted messaging, can send large video files, photos, audio messages, everything that they normally would do within their own ecosystems. And so before you can communicate between those two, we've got to make sure the other individual is who they are.
You're saying it's entitlements as a service. So I guess that's what EAAS, along with all the other as a services. Is this a fairly new technology?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I said, the technology's been around for about 12, 13 years. I think back into, if my memory serves me right, I think it was the iPhone 4 was when entitlements became a thing. The problem with entitlements traditionally was it was literally in some cases a box, right? And it was called an entitlement server. It was a box sitting inside the carrier's data center that had to be configured and set up and connected into all these features and backend systems. And with that came complexity, came cost, came significant rollout deployment times, and made it really hard to upgrade and go forward with it. In 2021, based on my work, I have a long relationship working with the OEMs, particularly Apple, but also with Google as well too. We knew that entitlements was going to become absolutely mandatory at some point or another, right? We saw the writing was on the wall. Devices are going eSIM only. Everything is going into digital. There's more and more features that have been rolling out into entitlements. We knew that at some point or another, every carrier is going to have to support them. So that's how NetLync was founded, on that principle that premise that, hey, we got it. We know that the demand is going to be there. The problem is, anytime you launch a new product, you can't just be a me too. You've got to solve a problem. And we knew the problem was adoption. And so we completely tackled it from a blank piece of paper, rebuilt the entire architecture from scratch and said, hey, let's make it so easy that it takes weeks for the carriers to deploy it, versus what was the old world, which was 9, 12, 16 months to get it going, plus millions of dollars. Now we've gotten it down to, and my smallest customer is 500 subscribers in Alaska, for example. So we made it completely accessible.
In your opinion, how is the wireless industry now shifting from the physical SIMs and retail-led models to the digital-first experiences?
Connectivity is, to me, the way that I see it right now, or cellular or wireless, anything that you want to put under the scope of connectivity. I mean, it is in some cases just as important as securing water in those cases, right? It's how economies function. It's how people completely stay in touch. It's how businesses are built. Everything you can imagine. How we transact as well too, right? Even payments, everything you can imagine. Everything is run through communications and through wireless. And with that, the world is changing at an accelerated pace. And also consumer habits are also changing, right? So everybody is looking, consumers want instant gratification. So one of the things that's changing dramatically is the visit to the wireless retail store is definitely, I would say, on the decline, or it's changing. It has to change at that point. And that means that when I get my iPhone and I could purchase it through 100 different ways to get my hands on it, or I get my new Google Pixel, again, I can get it through 100 different ways, and I'm sitting at 2 a.m. in the morning. Give me a reason why I can't basically do my migration, activate it, and get it running in the morning, get
Yeah.
it at that time of day.
Yep.
Why do I got to wait until 10 o'clock in the morning to head over to the store to get it all set up?
Exactly.
That's one of the things consumers want. They want that, hey, I got it, I want it to work, and I don't want to be thinking about how to configure it and set it up. I don't want to be calling customer care. I don't want to be logging online. Apple and Google have done an incredible job of actually solving that.
It's interesting because I spoke about this on the program a month or two ago, where T-Mobile is changing the customer experience in their brick and mortar stores, where you walk in and they want you to use their app. They don't want you talking to the salespeople. They want you to actually self-serve yourself, even in the store. Which we'll see how that works out. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I don't think the other two carriers have followed them yet, but even personally, as people in our age cohort, we like to touch and feel before we buy it, and we don't regularly buy things online. But I was, very busy this week, and I needed ink for the printer. I didn't get in the car and go over to Staples and buy my ink. I said, boom, it was there in 3 hours. I probably paid a little bit more for it, but it was the convenience factor for me that I needed to do work, and I didn't want to lose 45 minutes by going out and et cetera. To your point on what we can do now, self-serve 24/7.
We operate in a 24/7 world. We run in a
Yeah.
24/7. We run in a 24/7 economy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is, nothing shuts down anymore if you look at it from that kind of sense. But it's interesting. T-Mobile's has always been a bit of an innovator on that side of it in the U.S. market. And I think one of the things that in the rise to success was how they embraced digitalization. Right? They took it on fairly early. They saw the benefit of even just adding in value-added services. Also, they were digital services, right? They were throwing in Spotify, if I remember. They would throw in Netflix. It was all about value. But what's interesting is they're trying to the hybrid approach, where they're still bringing you into the store, but they're still making it easy for you. Go through the app, and if you do run into a problem, somebody's there to assist you. I do think it in some degree would work. But John, ask yourself: anytime you walk in and you have an experience with a new retail store or with a particular brand, when you have the experience and you say that's easy, how does that reflect on you as the customer or the consumer long term? Right?
Well, personally, if I have a great experience at the store, I'm going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the friendly face and the smiling face. It's also about the ease of it, right? That's what the wireless industry kind of needs to solve. It's become complex. I mean, you've been in this industry for a while. These billing and provisioning systems, and sometimes they're a mess. And we'll get back to you in 24 hours before we can fix your account. That's got to all go away at some point, and it's starting to happen at that basis.
Well, next month in February will be my 35th year in wireless, and we sometimes we get together with the old crew and say, we were just making this stuff up as we went along. We didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, try this. If it doesn't work, all right, we'll try something else. And apparently, smarter people than us prevailed. But anyway, you talked about the digital experience. In your opinion, what does digitalization actually mean in the wireless environment?
It means ease of access. So ease of access into activating my device, changing my plan, accessing my account, paying my account. Everything has to be completely accessible, meaning that it's got to be on a phone, it's got to be on a laptop. I don't care what form factor it is, but the fact is the customer can access it at any time during the day, at any moment, and it's got to be instant, quick, and it's got to be intuitive. I mean, intuitive is a key part, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of dashboards and everything, and you're staring at it and say it looks like a puzzle. You have no idea where to start. So it's got to be something that honestly a child could use. And I think about this, and one of the things I always thought about the success of the iPhone. One of the things that I love about Apple and Google devices is now when let's say it's Christmas morning, right? I got a brand new iPhone, and I open up the box, right? Now, Christmas Day, every retail store is generally pretty much closed. So now they've got this eSIM quick transfer or eSIM transfer on the Android side. You put the two devices side by side. Yes, we've been moving files and applications and all the other kind of stuffs for years on those devices, but now it'll actually transfer the connection. So I mean, if you've got a physical SIM, it'll change it to an eSIM and transfer it over, or if it's an eSIM, it'll move it over to the new device. So it doesn't even require a phone call to the carrier anymore. I just put them side by side, and then all of a sudden, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, the phone start the phone and it just works,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I didn't have to make a phone. That's digitalization.
Right.
That's taking that pain point and adding another level of convenience to the customer. And I think a lot of carriers miss that. They think it's just a new website or a new app. No, it's an experience is ultimately what it is.
Back in the day, my God, we spent hours in meetings with all different departments trying to figure out how do we activate the Christmas gift. On Christmas morning when they got the phone, the person who bought the gift didn't want it active before Christmas Day because now they're paying for the bill. And I mean, the time that we spent trying to figure out how to solve for that. And now look where we are. As you said, you don't have to make a phone call. You can self-serve. You can, get your user experience, up and running right then.
John, it goes one step further. You don't even have to do anything. It just takes care of everything completely seamlessly for you. But you're exactly right. And by the way, that's kind of like takes the, imagine opening up a phone that's already activated. Now you got to port your number over and all that is gone. But it's interesting that you say that as well, too, because, they've even gone one step further between Apple and Google. They're even allowing you to transfer between an iPhone to an Android device and vice versa, right? So they really are definitely focused on completely making that experience incredibly easy and instantaneous, right? Because we like instant gratification. We like things to work like that, right?
Yeah. So with all this technology hitting us so fast, and a lot of people may not be ready for it yet. Why, in your opinion, are the MVNOs now being forced to rethink their activation, their onboarding, their service delivery? What does an MVNO need to do to succeed in today's new environment?
You're asking me a very personal question because I was an MVNO one time myself.
Okay. Subject of another podcast. Okay.
That's another podcast. I can talk for hours on that one. And I can tell you why I won't do it again, but at the same time, there's days why I really miss it as well, too. I won't deny that.
Well, you know what? You've got my audience and my interest peaked. Why wouldn't you do it again?
Believe it or not, I think the barrier of entry is too low. Right. I think there's just too much noise in the market, and that's the challenge is how do you make the noise, right? The connectivity is a very funny thing overall, right? First of all, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. I mean, it's a commodity. I've been using this for many, many years. I'm driving down the road and I've got my Ford, just for example, right? On the right-hand side, I've got the Shell gas station. On the left-hand side, I've got the Chevron gas station. Okay. And what makes me decide, do I pull over and I'm driving down the road, and on my right-hand side, I pull over and I pull into the Shell gas station, I fill up my vehicle, and I'm on my way. And then on the way back, I stop at the Chevron gas station. Tell me, I'm still driving a Ford. Tell me what's changed. Nothing. Right? I can't tell what fuel is in my vehicle. My car runs the same. It still feels the same. It's got all the power, everything else behind it. So what's the difference, right? I've got to make sure that, hey, the driveway is super easy to get in, and the gas station is super clean. Maybe my price is a little bit more. Maybe there's a bit of value. I've got to think of all these things as well, too, that caters to the particular customer, and I've got to build the brand loyalty. This goes back to the same thing with connectivity. You're always looking for that little 1 degree, 2 degree, 5 degree change that gets that customer over the line. And the problem is when you've got hundreds of MVNOs that are out there, it gets very hard to develop a unique idea overall. And And by the way, in my MVNO, I actually operated four brands under one single connection, right? And we did things that were very wild and very different on that basis. But the issue that I find is the barrier of entry is so low that anybody can spin one up fairly quickly because they're now NVNO in a box is now easier than ever before. Points of distribution are getting harder. That was one thing I think you remember, right? The old days. What was it? It was number of doors, right? Is
Yep.
that how you used to measure it, or
Right.
how many master dealers you would get,
Right.
and everything else as well? Those days are evaporating.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've got to go direct to consumer. I've got to go digital. And my consumer has to decide, well, why am I going to go with this brand versus this brand? Both of them are 5G. Both of them give me a whole bunch of megabytes. They're within a couple dollars of each other. What makes you so special that I go with you? And that, my, I believe, has become so complex and so difficult to challenge that anybody coming into this game now they're looking at it and saying, oh, wait a minute, why am I succeeding? It's because you have to come up with something unbelievably unique until the next guy outsmarts you, and then you got to outsmart him. And that's a bit discouraging. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. So with that being said, how was the definition of a successful MVNO changed?
I think that you have to find a very specific consumer profile, right? And you have to understand it down to a science, right? You've got to know how these people think, what they behave, what they react to, why they're loyal to and why they're not. And you just drive on basically building a consumer brand for that particular consumer segment. And that's it. You stay in your lane, right? Now, if you're successful with that one, you find another consumer segment and you move on to the next consumer segment. But you are definitely doing it slice by slice, or lane by lane, however you want to, whatever analogy you want to use, but it's really quite narrow at that point. And then the trick is making sure that when AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, or anybody else, or I mean Comcast and Charter are just killing it in
Right.
the market,
Yes,
right?
they are.
If
Yes, they are.
if,
Yeah.
if they show up and they offer it, they've got something attractive, whether it's a triple play or a quad play or something, or they can finance device upgrades easier because MVNOs can't do that yet, right? Then all of a sudden you've got to figure out, why are these people sticking with me? Now, I've seen some where they're doing the celebrity-based MVNOs, and I actually tried that idea 10 years ago, and the first response I get, well, if your service goes down, it's going to reflect badly. But it seems like, celebrity doesn't mean what it used to mean 10 years ago. But I would say that's you're doing it literally like you're just a line by line or lane by lane type item, and it's challenging, right? And I don't think you get the same ROI that you would get in the past.
To the celebrity thing, as you know, right as we ended 2025, we did a whole piece on celebrity MVNOs with Alex Beeson out of the Besson group, and it was fun. We had a good back and forth. If you hadn't seen that episode, folks out there, go back and watch it. It ran on let's see, December 18th. It ran. So yeah, it was a good session talking about the pros and cons of having celebrities. I'm not going to rehash it right now. To your point about parity and having, as an MVNO, you have to have a fast launch. You can't wait a year anymore for your idea to germinate. Digital onboarding, device compatibility. I preach, as everybody knows, is differentiation. I mean, why am I going to leave? And again, I hate myself for repeating this so often, but why am I going to leave Verizon or Mint or any carrier or MVNO to come with you? What is different about your service? Like you said, the gas is all the same. I don't get out and look at the content or what's in the gas. I just want my phone to connect to the network, but I want something else that helps me or supports something that I believe in or meets my need, and that your niche is addressing that need. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's got to get personal. It's got to become very personal to me. I mean, and there's a lot of gimmicks. My God, I've seen everything. I've seen the crypto MVNOs. I've seen the charity MVNOs. You go across the line. It's insane, right?
Yeah.
Look, it's got to be something that's deeply personal. But, going back to that again, consumers are also trendy, right? One day, one thing meets to them, if one thing is important to them and it means something special, then the next day it doesn't, right? They kind of change loyalty, and that's very interesting on that basis. Look, I think if you're going to launch an MVNO, I do think that there's still a little bit of a recipe behind it, right? And I think if you hit the key things, this is my personal opinion. Number one is an incredible digital experience, right? Meaning it is so elegant, it is so easy that, whether you're 90 or 9, right? It's easy to sign up for the service. That's number one. Number two is obviously competitive on price. That's another challenge, but that's, those economics come into what your wholesale agreement looks like, and what the incentives are, and 100 other things. The other thing too is your obviously is you've narrowed down your consumer profile. You know exactly who they are, and the fourth one is customer service, right? If somebody knows that my brand will back me if I have a problem, that they're accessible, that they're reliable, and by the way, even if the network goes down, right? Consumers can be incredibly forgiving if because they're not willing to sacrifice the customer service at the end of the day. And that's probably the key thing that I would say that you've got to nail. But customer service isn't cheap.
Not only that they're going to stand behind their brand from a customer service, but are they going to be around? I think for every 3 MVNOs that launch, I think 2 fail, and they fail quickly, as we're seeing out there. What are some of the common mistakes that MVNOs are still making when it comes to their back-end architecture?
I think the common mistakes is number one is how easy it is to sign up for the service. Number one, they've got to be. I mean, it's a kind of a given. You've got to have eSIM, right? That's a given. Number one, you can't really do digital without eSIM, anyways, and that has to be completely fine. That has to be dialed in on another level, meaning that the performance of getting that profile, getting it downloaded, getting it installed, getting it activated, those things have to be done in seconds. In fact, one of the things we do on our entitlement server is we actually put reporting out there that breaks down segment by segment, because you've got to fine tune it. Nothing worse than a customer waiting for something to happen when they're just staring at a screen and they're seeing a spinning wheel, right? Or whatever it is. That's the worst thing that can happen. So you've got to fine tune that. You've got to fine tune that from a technical standpoint. The second aspect of it is obviously the performance of the entire experience. Now, making it simple is one thing, but your backend system, whatever data center, whatever hosted services you're running on, have to be completely optimal and high performance. And that's another thing. The customer can't sit there, like when they hit a button, they got to be on to the next piece of it, right? So you got to invest in that infrastructure to make sure everything's working properly. The last part is, if you think you're going to get away with just simply offloading your customer service into AI, you're greatly mistaken. You can't really disrespect your customer any more than that, in my opinion. AI is great for quick answers and getting to FAQs, but if they've got a problem, they need somebody on the other line that will basically show that they can resolve it. So the one thing, if you're talking about backend systems, is the customer service tools to resolve those issues almost instantaneously. That's one thing that a lot of MVNOs underestimate, and then they completely screw it up.
And you end up having the guy that was on one of the commercials just talking to his phone going, representative.
You got it. You nailed it. There you go.
We've all done that. And it is I abandon the call normally. With all of this stuff hitting us now, where do you see the future of wireless? You've got, talked about retail versus digital distribution, but there's some other things going on from technology. I mean, I've said many times that I think 5G was, I don't want to say a disappointment. It didn't fulfill what we all thought it would. But now you've got 6G coming out, Wi-Fi, satellite. Where do you, in your knowledge of this industry all these years, see the future for our industry?
I do think that the way I see 6G coming up, it's not about speed, it's about capacity. And so this means that, and the fact that, Apple has its own modem, right? Qualcomm is taking what was, we went from a physical SIM card to an eSIM, which is basically run by what they call an EUICC, which is essentially a chip that is on the modem that where you download the eSIM. Qualcomm's going one step further, and they're going with an iSIM. That means you actually download the eSIM directly into the modem itself, okay? So what does that mean? That means when something comes connected with a modem, and if you look at the Qualcomm type model, it's a good example, right? It's got the 5G, it's got the Wi-Fi all built into one single unit. This means that devices are going to ship out of the factory with built-in connectivity out of the gate. So when I come home and I fire up my TV, my security cameras, my alarm system, cars are a great example. They've already got built-in connectivity, right? Already out of the gate. And so I do think that there's going to be definitely a battle between Wi-Fi 7 and 6G on that basis, particularly on the enterprise world, right? Factory floors, right, where devices come and and we've seen the crazy robots, moving around the boxes. Those are coming, right, guys? Those are actually very real, but those are going to show up out of the box. You turn them on and they work. Versus some guy going in there and how to administer it. Then you've got T-Mobile, right? They're now in the wireless broadband business, essentially, right? Sticking, the cells on the corner of the house, and you got that going on. So what it means is that connectivity from a wireless standpoint, from a cellular standpoint, is going to be so accessible and so distributed that you're not all basically, like I said, in some cases, you're going to buy a product and it's already pre-connected. There's nothing to sign up. There's nothing to set up. It's on all the time. And again, this is the automotive industry has already gone down that path. Now we're going to see it start moving into consumer household goods as well too.
And does that use the satellite technology as well that we're hearing all about?
At some point, it could, right? I saw a thing the other day where Starlink apparently, I think, and again, I just read this. Starlink filed for Starlink Mobile or something like that at some point or another, right? So we know that LEO systems can actually, can perform pretty good. Amazon is launching Kuiper, I believe it's called, right? Is what they call their satellite system as well too. So right now, satellite is incredibly good at the stopgap, meaning that it's incredible to think like, okay, I've been in this industry for a while. You have too. Did you ever imagine that your iPhone today in your pocket is already got a satellite connection to it? I mean, come on, you remember the old satellite devices of way back when, right? The big boxes and the or the or the Iridium phones. You remember those ones, John?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure, absolutely.
So, yeah, exactly. So now basically satellite is now inside our consumer household good on that basis. And it basically makes sure that we've got connectivity anywhere, anytime in the world, right? Just like it's about getting access to the service. Now we've got connectivity anytime, anywhere in the world. So I think satellite is definitely playing a bigger and bigger role. And eventually, in some cases, there could be people that just say, I want full-time satellite access. That's going to happen at that point. But I do see connectivity becoming further commoditized. But it comes down to who the guy that succeeds in it is the one that can turn around and say, I made it incredibly accessible, I've made it incredibly easy, and I've made it incredibly reliable. Those are going to be the next three challenges. But it's going to be everywhere and anywhere into anything you can imagine.
We started off our discussion about entitlements, and you've done a great job in filling in the blanks for me, and I hope people that are listening and watching this right now. But are there still people that I think the answer is no, but that don't embrace the entitlements that are needed out there, and what breaks or becomes impossible without the proper entitlement layer?
Yeah, there's people out there that are resisting it. But I mean, there's a certain point where they will resist it and they'll realize as devices come to market, they actually can't support those devices anymore because those devices will require entitlements. We're actually getting closer to that happening. So that's their choice if they want to jeopardize their customer base. And nothing worse than having a network where you can't support certain devices. I think back in the 90s and 2000s, that was always the big thing, right? It's like, oh, I can't support this device, but I can support this one. It really limited your customer access. So that's a risk that they're taking. The other thing that also is what they're also ignoring is the fact that Apple and Google have made a decision that network provisioning of particular services on the device or quality control of those services plus authentication must run through entitlements. So that means you may be able to support the device, but you're going to lose functionality. That's the second piece. The third part is that you're going to simply you're simply going to put your customer through a painful experience of upgrading their device, and connecting you won't be able to add wearables, you won't be able to put daisy chain your devices together without entitlements going forward. So you're going to start missing a lot of functionality. I don't care how fast your network is, if the customer experience isn't great, you're going to find yourself in trouble fairly soon. But you know what, I say this, but the good news is we have made it so incredibly easy and so accessible that I gotta say, I'm out of all my startups, this has been probably one of my most successful ones to date. Because at this speed, because we solved a major pain point, and the market is making it very clear you have to have entitlements.
Wow, this has been a terrific discussion. I've learned more about entitlements and all the other things that are coming at us faster than some people like, about our industry and how it's evolving and changing. And as our networks diversify, as our devices continue to get smarter and automatically do things that years ago we can never imagine, I still believe that our industry has a lot of room to grow. And it is a commodity, but how do we make it more non-commodity by offering things that others don't have, if that's possible? Emir, anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, look, first of all, thanks for bringing the MVNO subject up. I think that part is interesting, and that's definitely had a big impact on industry. And look, great questions, and definitely enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. If I watch this and I'm enthralled as much as your host has been, how does somebody contact NetLync?
Website, really simple, netlync.com. If you're a carrier and you don't have entitlements, you got to get it. And if you've got entitlements, you're not happy with your vendor, come talk to us. We'll show you a completely new world.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Will you be at any of the trade shows coming up? This is trade show season starting.
It is. I know. I was looking at my calendar for Q1 and I was getting a bit anxious, I got to admit.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, everything for me kind of builds up until World Mobile Congress of Barcelona, which is, as I call it, the Super Bowl in our industry.
Well, I want to thank you, Emir. Emir Aboulhosn, everybody, from NetLync. Just a terrific conversation, and I look forward to talking with you more because you've really piqued my interest, and I hope you've piqued the interest of our listeners and our viewers as well. So that is going to wrap up another edition of the Boon of Wireless Podcast. And as always, we'll see you next time. Do you want to be a guest on the Boon of Wireless Podcast? Give us a call at 908-THE-BOON. Yes, 908-843-2666.